Welcome this evening. We are the LA Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance. Our mission is to advance sustainability and resilience across the city through advocacy, sharing of best practices, and community action. Please introduce yourselves in the chat. You can add your name, your pronouns if you are so inclined, and your organization if you are connected to one, and what brings you here this evening. And also, we're going to look at the chat in a little bit. So if you have any specific reasons you're here tonight, please add those as well. We're going to do a couple minutes of housekeeping and then we'll jump into the crux of the event. And the crux of the event is the LA's climate implementation plan. So it should be really, really interesting. And then after that, we're going to do our committee reports, and we'll have an opportunity for anybody who wants to make announcements to do those. And of course, we'll ask you to complete an evaluation, and one of my fellow board members will put a link to those evaluations in the chat. And we really do look at those and take those seriously. So please do complete those. We find those super helpful. We have community agreements, and somebody I hope will put those into the chat too. Although I think tonight will probably be a friendly group. Sometimes we have kind of spicy meetings, and these are really important. But tonight is probably a bit more relaxed. But they are too. If you can, have your camera on so we can be building community and so we can see each other's faces. Assume good intent, give folks the benefit of the doubt, demonstrate respect and appreciation. Refrain from having too many side conversations in the chat. We are wanting to build community and the chat is open, but stay on topic. Listen intently. Step forward and step back, meaning, we want everybody to be engaged, but also give other people space to engage. Be concise and have fun. We are recording the meeting. I hope you heard that. If you haven't, if you're just joining now, please do introduce yourselves in the chat, and you can use the raise hand feature to participate. And I think that's about it. I will be sure to introduce myself, and I'm Lisa. I'm the executive director of the Alliance, and we have most of our board members here this evening. Alex, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Tanglos. I'm on the board, as Lisa mentioned. I am the chair of my organization, my firm's sustainability committee for Southern California, and I'm the former chair of the WCKNC, that's Wilshire Center Koreatown Neighborhood Council, Sustainability and Green Committee.
Oh, and thank you for reminding me. I should have said I'm with the Silver Lake. I'm not on the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council, but I'm with their Green Committee. Muriel.
Hello, I'm also an NCSA board member and I am the chair of the Transportation and Land Use Committee.
Thank you. And Charles.
Everyone, Charles Miller. I'm on the board. I'm also the chair of the Palms Neighborhood Council Green Committee. I am also the chair of Los Angeles Climate Reality Project and on Community Forest Advisory Committee for Los Angeles, and a native plant and tree nerd.
Yes, an enthusiast. And if for those of you who don't know him, if you haven't gotten him on that subject, he really is a wealth of knowledge. I wanted to briefly talk about the Renee Good situation. I'm sure everybody's aware of that at this point. I am so sad and angry about it, and I know that most Angelenos don't want ICE in our city, and most folks in Minneapolis don't want ICE in their city, and I know that our mayor here doesn't want ICE in our city, and I hope that what's happening. Of course, nobody really knows what the next steps in this awful situation are going to be, but I hope that they serve as a catalyst for getting us closer to what we want. And I just wanted to say that because I think it's such a, well, I hope it's a tipping point of sorts and a turning point for us because this is really awful. and so emblematic of why we don't want ICE in our city. And also, I heard on social media, as I mentioned, I live in Silver Lake, that ICE was going to people's homes in Echo Park and Silver Lake for the last few days and taking people from their homes. So that's what is happening here. Um, and speaking of the mayor, we are here tonight to have Steve Ball, who's executive director of the Mayor's Office of Energy and Sustainability, to share with us the draft climate implementation plan. So I'm super, super excited to have him with us, and so happy that so many of you are with us. And so, sorry, I'm remembering I need to let him share his slides. Um, and so we're going to turn it over to him for the most of the rest of the evening, and he'll share his presentation briefly, and then we'll really open it up for a conversation with the rest of you, and it'll really largely be a listening session because it is still a draft plan, and my understanding is maybe some things that we say tonight will change the direction of the plan. All right, I think that's it. And can we highlight Steve?
Thanks, Lisa.
I'm asking
Um,
Charles, can you do that?
I'm working on it.
Oh, okay.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate, this time, and thanks everyone for coming tonight. I am going to share my slides here. Let me make sure I do this right. We are Google people,
I
so
think if you go to slideshow on the top right,
there we
yeah,
go. Everyone can see that?
yes, it looks
Yes.
great.
Great. All right, we'll start on page one. Great. Well, thanks again. Thank you, Lisa, for the intro. And as Lisa pointed out, we are in the middle of drafting this, and we want to hear everyone's opinions. So my goal is to keep this relatively short so we can hear thoughts and opinions and discussion on this, um, so that we can have a robust discussion on it. So I don't want to belabor the point. So I'm just going to kind of rush into this thing, but as here in the mayor's office, and Karen Bass is very dedicated to climate. And fortunately for us, we are building on lots of previous plans that we have. So a lot of the mayor's initiative builds on previous mayor's initiatives, both from Garcetti and Villagrosa. And Bass is committed to keeping those commitments and working on that. I think one of her approaches that is interesting is working directly with city departments, and I think that's something you'll see in this plan is really focusing on what the city can control, what we can do, and really focusing on that. And I think that's going to keep us focused and tight as we move forward in developing this plan. And of course, prioritizing environmental justice. This is such a big issue here in LA. We are talking about access, community engagement, making sure more people are able to participate in these decision process. And then, of course, benefits to the green economy for all. And, of course, for the stakeholder engagement, this is just one of the process that we want. And we know neighborhood councils are such an important voice. And we really appreciate this alliance and your all interest in these topics. So what is the mayor's climate implementation? Well, it's basically to present the mayor's vision on climate safe Los Angeles where we can thrive. And again, I talked about how we're building on this previous plan. I think what's important to note is that, the last time the city put out a plan was right before COVID in 2019, 2020. And this is sort of taking on that. So if you remember, that was the Green New Deal, and the Green New Deal had 5 zeros that was applied to it. And we're taking into those 5 zeros and looking really about how we're implementing it. And I think that's the difference is, 6 years now that we're into this, we're really focused on the implementation and how to implement them. And as any implementation goes, there's lots of bumps, there's lots of things that we're adjusting and learning about as we're trying to get into 2045 zero carbon. Other things that we should note is like we did a gaps analysis. Obviously it was 6 years ago, so there's some things that have changed. A couple of those things we'll talk about is heat. The Green New Deal didn't talk a lot about heat. Again, we're seeing the impacts of heat as we're going into hotter summers. weather whiplash. We're having these big storms, the perfect days like today. This is sort of emblematic of what climate change is bringing to us. And then, of course, resiliency. We're just on the tail of the fires, the year anniversary of the fire. So building on the resiliency for that. And one of the things, Charles, I know you're a nature-based solutions person, but this is something that we're really building on as well. Something that the Green New Deal, I think it's not necessarily Green New Deal fault, but it's mostly, just as we're advancing, learning more, we're bringing more research and knowledge into that, and nature-based solutions is an important part of that. And then, of course, urgency. We live in a climate change world, and we can't wait. So really focusing on local action. This is key, particularly in this day and age. So really focused on the Los Angeles region. And we really are, when we look at some of the goals and we look at other cities, there's lots that we can be proud of. There's lots of things that we're going, but of course, we'll still need to make improvements and go forward on these aspects for it. Talking about how the departments are getting involved in it, and the mayor actually has a climate cabinet. In fact, she is convening a session this week with her 15 top departments. Those are the proprietaries, really those that have assets, public works, and all those that have, facilities that are really in top of and are promoting climate in the cities. So they're all reporting all their drafts into us. This is part of the process for the climate plans. We looked at where they were. We gathered sort of the research that has advanced in the 6 years, and then we kind of put it all together, and then we add sort of stir in your community input, and this is the idea of how we'll get sort of a plan in very layman's, of course, terms. So we're following up with the departments. We're in the middle of finalizing these goals, targets, actions, and are doing that right now. So what is the climate plan? How does it look like? It's a little different from the Green New Deal. I don't know how well you're noticing that. The Green New Deal had 400 initiatives. As we're kind of moving forward, we realize 400 initiatives is difficult for the community to wrap their arms around. It's difficult for us to track. So we're really simplifying this model for us to do that. It's not to say that those other implementations and other tasks are not being done. They're just being done in a different process. And this is really going to be a bigger picture, sort of then looking at these other plans that the city is doing, for example, urban forest management plan, which is to come out this year, and then weaving these plans, which have more details into this plan. So this is how we're structuring it. We just have 4 massive goals. We'll talk a little bit about this, 14 objectives and 50, 60 targets. This is where we're really sort of, looking at that. Again, we took in the Green New Deal targets. We're looking at where they're at. We're looking at progress that they're being done. We're bringing in some other new targets that the Green New Deal did not have, particularly on some of the topics that we're talking about, and trying to move forward then on that plan. So this is how we're pushing forward on this. So, what is the principles of this plan? These are the principles that carry through all these goals, all these objectives. And of course, we're talking about that urgency around equity, environmental justice. Just a quick second here, we're really looking at how, when we talk about environmental justice, we're looking at access. So access and equality, community engagement, making sure that people have voices in the decision making process, benefits of the green economy. And then how we can basically better distribute the resources that we have to everyone else. Of course, we want to improve our health resilience, and then jobs and inclusion, and then of course transparency. We're trying to be as open and as forthcoming as process, and really about accountability. We want our goals, and we want our metrics to be public, to make sure that everyone knows how we're doing on this. So again, here are the 4 categories that we have. I'll just simplify it. The first one is really just about, it's the mitigation one. How are we getting and reducing our GHG down? That's the first one. Second one is about resilience, and this is the one, again, that we're really elevating. That is something a lot. I think 6 years ago, we're still kind of planning, climate change was that. Honestly, I feel like we're living in it. So this is really about the resiliency aspect of it. Thriving green economy, of course, we talked about that. And then four, as a global leader, as we know, Los Angeles is doing a lot of great stuff, and a lot of cities are watching us. And then, of course, we can't forget the Olympics, the World Cup this year. So really leading through those events and showing the world what we're doing and showing how we transformed ourselves as a city. So these are the objectives. These are those 14 categories that we're going in there. I'm going to go through this fast. But again, this presentation, I think, Lisa, I know you have it, so feel free to share it. And I should point, we put draft on this because we are still wordsmithing this. So, based on people's feedbacks, based on everyone's comments. So, things still might change. So if you see these, and then when we can come to a draft for another draft in our share, we'll talk about the timeline. Just be prepared for that. So the first one is, of course, about clean, affordable energy. And this is really the LA 100 initiative, delivering energy by 2035. Second one is about buildings carbon free. And then the third one is really about zero emissions and transportation. And I should note, but the transportation is not just about putting EVs on cars, but really looking at what we call VMTs, vehicle mileage for transportation, or just, how can we reduce our trips around town and use public transportation and integrate that. So it's really a whole set of principles on that front. Continuing that, obviously, looking at our goods movement, we're the biggest port here, combined with Long Beach. There's lots of goods movements here. Very, very important. Phase out of urban drilling. If you've been following this issue, it's lots of ups and downs, but we really want to highlight this as a priority. And then, of course, landfill waste. I would have to say we've had major setbacks. I think the pandemic with Amazon we're still way behind on those goals. And this is probably the goals where we really need a lot of work. And, sanitation is trying to keep up. But it's something that, is probably based on the Green New Deal goals, the one that our metrics are short. And then as we move to goal 2, which is the resiliency. So we're moving the water system. We're calling that resiliency, really focused on recycled water. We got some big projects coming up. So it's really focusing on that. Obviously, conservation is part of that. Extreme heat, wildfire, this is the resilience, putting in more codes to be more resilient, as well as we're doing an extreme heat plan, as really trying to look at it through a holistic approach, as well as through urban forestry and looking through nature-based solutions that way. And then, of course, the ecosystems, which enhance those. Goal 3, these are really our green economy. So one is about placements. The first one's about placement of jobs. So really developing that. We've actually excelled and have done really good in our job placements for the Green New Deal. So we've exceeded those goals. How can we get more people trained in apprenticeships, doing workforce training and workforce pathways? So we're looking at programs and leverage how we can do that. And of course, the green business sector and how we can do that. We had ideas of green banks. This is something that was part of the EPA. Of course, we know the GGRF funding that was part of that has disappeared. So we're really looking at how we can work with local institutions, work with our state, the GoBiz, and in the state of California to see how we can really push green capital here in the city. And then the last one is these objectives for the Olympics. One is just, making the Olympic Games as sustainable as possible. And the other one, which is really the most important part, is the legacy. What are we doing after these games to really show that this is an important part and an important aspect of the city. So we did have a stakeholder meeting. I believe, Lisa, you were there at this meeting. This is just a summary of that meeting. A couple big things that came up was, it was really supportive, which was great. Everyone wanted to participate, and this was a more encouraging on how we can all work together to buoy this ship up for sustainability. A lot was nature-based solutions. We had so many people talk about nature and how they want to see it more here in Los Angeles. And that was probably one of the biggest takeaways that we wanted to do. And then really about that green economy, making sure everyone is part of this. How can we get youth involved? How can we get everyone involved to be a part of this process. So here we are on the timeline. We are frantically working on this. Please be, we know how, we're trying and working on this, but so far, if you can believe it, we're on track. But we'll see how we do as a rollout. But again, we are kind of in December and January where we're following up. This is your follow-up stakeholder meetings. We're revising the plan. We're writing the plan. We're really looking and digging deep into these goals with the goal of March to April to have that plan. And I should say that plan will be we want another community feedback. So around that time, once we sort of develop it, we want to come back in the springtime to everyone and get comments. I don't know if you saw the county plan, they had a process on that. We're looking to do something similar on that. And that's it. I hope I was able to go through it. Again, I really wanted to focus on questions and answers in case, I don't know, this is more helpful. This is the whole picture of it. So you can use that as a reference as we go through our questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. Can you stop sharing your presentation, please?
Sure.
I mean, we might need to go back and forth in case people have questions. And Charles, can you stop highlighting Steve, please, so we can see everybody? And I went through the chat, and it looks like most people didn't really have a lot of focused things. So there are not a lot of themes in the chat. But a lot of comments, thoughts, or questions or suggestions already. And I should have mentioned I have a couple of my own. Normally I'm so generous and I just stay very quiet. But if people don't have mentioned mine, I will save space for me to make sure they're asked. But let's get started. Rosalind, and please everybody, make sure to introduce yourself and also be succinct. Those are my two requests. Okay, Rosalind, you're first.
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks so much for this presentation. It's really exciting to see this work going forward. I'm Rosalind Helfand, and I am a co-founder of the California Global Biodiversity Alliance, working on connecting local and global action. We have many members of this alliance here in the city of LA. I think that one concern that I have is that with nature-based solutions and biodiversity being mentioned so many times, that it's not actually part of our top line principles. And I think that it is very, very important to actually do that and make it part of the top line, because otherwise we still end up kind of reinforcing these siloed ideas and putting gray solutions ahead of green solutions where they shouldn't actually be putting one ahead of the other. You have to have those solutions going hand in hand, and perhaps even nature-based solutions being prioritized. This also goes, I think that it's very important to connect in the city's biodiversity motion that went through in 2017 and be very deliberate about that, and the specific work that's being done with the biodiversity monitoring of the LA's biodiversity index and plans that have been temporarily put on hold to develop a local biodiversity strategy and action plan, an entire action plan going forward for the city on this. So I'd love to see that the climate plan kind of reflects those joint efforts or joined efforts, inclusive of LA Sand's work on cross-departmental engagement around biodiversity and climate. And the fact that the city has been a very strong leader for going on, I don't know, 4 to 6 years now on participating in global engagement, where there's an opportunity to look not just at educational exchange, but what our procurement, how that impacts the global picture on biodiversity and climate as well. So just, again, really focusing in on those linkages and making sure that we're not kind of putting one type of solution ahead of the other. Thank you.
No, that's great. I really appreciate that. And, we are making sure, one of the metrics that we have is to increase our biodiversity score through the biodiversity plan that we have, and to keep that top of mind and a priority. And as I said too before, one of the big things that we're really excited about is the urban forest management plan, which will be coming out next year too. So we're really excited about that plan too, which has a robust goal for canopy cover.
All right, thank you. Andrea.
Hey, good evening. My name is Andrea Leon Grossman, and I'm formerly with Boat Solar and also with Azul. I have an environmental justice background. I'm a Mexican-born immigrant, now a citizen. I am very concerned about some of the issues that were brought in, like for instance, in terms of water. I think recycled water is great, but I think before we do a whole lot of investments in new equipment and capital investments, I think that we also need to talk about conservation. One of the projects that I am proud to have stopped is a desalination plant off of Huntington Beach. And the thing is, if you look at other countries, like for instance, Israel, that have desalination plants before they built any projects for recycling water or desalination plants, they first had leak detection systems that are state of the art. And in cities like ours, we have between 10 and 18% leaks. So I think that the first thing we need to do is stop wasting our water and also just ensure that all our appliances are really water saving. So we have low flow toilets and aerators and all that good stuff. So I think that if we invest in conservation, it will go a long way. The cheapest gallon of water is the one we don't have to source. And the same thing goes for electricity. The fact is that there was a study, an energy atlas by NRDC and UCLA that concluded that 4% of buildings use 50% of our electricity. So that means that we have a huge amount of waste. And the same buildings are also very inefficient when it comes to water. So again, I think we need to make sure that we are using our resources as efficiently as possible. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is on this roadmap to 2028 that I posted a link on the chat, it talks about deploying clean technologies, among them a huge amount of rooftop solar, 9.3 gigawatts, and especially deploying virtual power plants. I think it's absolutely embarrassing that we have no virtual power plants in our city. Even the investor-owned utilities have deployed virtual power plants. SMUD, which is a far smaller utility, has virtual power plants, and we have none. I think that we are in a place where we could excel with this type of technology, and we're just not doing it. So I think that we're missing on that huge opportunity, not only to have real affordable energy, but for reliability. And I'm very concerned that we instead are turning a page for the worse when it comes to investing in something like a full solution like hydrogen. If you look at this roadmap to 2028, there's no mention of hydrogen, but real clean solutions, heat pumps, water heat pumps. And I just don't understand what's happening right now with the mayor's office, and including putting pressure on DWP to do the right thing. I just finally got off gas completely at my house, and the last appliance was the water heat pump. And DWP just said that after I applied for the rebate, that is going to take about 6 months to get the rebate back. And I think that's a lot of time to float $2,000, especially since I am now unemployed. So I think we should do better for equity for those buildings that we want to electrify. So I would love to hear what the mayor's office can do to do right by Angelinos.
Yeah, there's a lot that you.
I was just going to say
Yeah.
that was a lot.
But I'll just try to be really quickly. Of course, water conservation is very, very important. We're not giving that up, and we're still working on that. We have worked hard on our conservation on indoor, and sort of the main right now is working on the outdoor conservation, really, which means conservation for lawns. How can we get those down? as well as converting those. So we're really working on that as a priority, as well as some others. They've done some studies on where to focus that. So DWP is working on that. The roadmap that you talked about, that's a Lacey program. We're working closely with the roadmap to 28 with Lacey on that. We are working on many projects on virtual power plants. You're right. We are building some. We're working on equity. In fact, we have one that is going up in South LA to be a resilient hub, and that should be opening up in a year or two with LADWP. Heat pumps, the California has a goal to be 6 million heat pumps, and by 2030 we're doing that. There's more programs that are going to come down on rebates, and we're constantly working with the LADWP on trying to figure out that capital problem. So still a lot of work to do. I really thank your comments for that.
I did not know, we're wrapping up a grant with DWP on home electrification, and I really promoted that heat pump water heater rebate. I did not know that there was a 6 month delay, although I've gotten a rebate from DWP before, and there was a long delay. Do you know more about that issue? Could you just say, like, because that's, I mean, like, to all of us in our minds, DWP is the one department or one of a couple departments that has the cash. Like, that's how we think of them.
Yeah, it's a big thing, and DWP is aware of it. We work with DWP. We want to make sure that they work quickly and faster. We're aware of these issues that DWP has. They're well aware of it. They're working hard on it. So they've implemented some things that are good, but still, I do have to say they can improve, and hopefully, whether through I was going to say automation, through AI, all this other stuff, this is the time where they can really start speeding up this application and the check process. And they are actually working up also to some upfront capital costs. As Andrea noted, the stuff's not cheap when you want to electrify your home, and you got to have the upfront capital. These green banks were supposed to be working on that. Now they're working with CDFIs to help upfront some of that capital, both for multifamily as well as single family homes too.
Okay, thank you. Rosalie.
So a couple
And can you
suggest
introduce yourself, please?
Rosalie Preston. I'm on the board of the Harbor Gateway North Neighborhood Council. I'm also on the board of the South Coast Native Plant Society down in the South Bay area. Just a couple suggestions for projects that could achieve some of the goals of the plan. One is, it's my understanding that the city of Sacramento has also their utility is publicly owned, and that they actually have a program that puts the solar panels on people's homes and then maintains them. And I think that's something that LADWP should look into. And it would be a way to train and hire more solar installers for LADWP. And the other suggestion is for the city to encourage a number of small businesses to collect every Monday in my neighborhood when people put out their items for pickup, for trash pickup, people put out pieces of furniture that could so easily be fixed up and then resold. So instead of people buying new tables and couches, etc., there would be small stores around the city that would be selling the repurposed furniture for people. And that would, create some small businesses.
That's a great idea. I just want to know that LADWP actually has a program where it's called the Shared Solar Program, where they will install solar on your roof, and it will be managed and run by LADWP, and then you will get the discount from that. So that's a similar SMUD program on that. And thank you. I'll thank you, Rosalie. I'll definitely take away those notes.
Sorry, I'm not planning on interrupting or adding most times, but I'm going to in this case. My understanding of the shared solar program is that it's not on your roof, it's you're sort of tapping into solar that is somewhere else.
It's both. So you can put it on your roof. And then they have a virtual net metering. I have to double check on the, I'm gonna once you start getting in the details, then I'm gonna, would have to defer to DWP.
Shared solar is just for renters to basically provide in a fund that
Also a
supplements.
rooftop, yeah, rooftop solar program. They should have three solar programs.
Right.
They have a virtual net metering, they have a rooftop, they have net metering, they have fit programs, and then they also have a rooftop solar program, which does allow people to do that. So I do apologize. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah. Glenn, and thank you for telling us about Joy. That's very, and you might want to, maybe you can share that news now as well.
Yeah, I put it into chat. Glenn Bailey, I'm in the Valley Neighbor Councils and Bank and Lank and Budget Advocates. Yeah, I'd heard a rumor, and so I contacted Commissioner Len Schaefer on the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners to confirm regarding Joy Atkinson. She passed away suddenly yesterday. She represented South LA for many years, not only on the Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, but on many community-based organizations and training, leadership training for Black women and others in the community for decades, and very active politically. So, and she was she was a commissioner who listened and responded. You don't always get that. Most of the time, it's like, okay, thanks for your comments. Next, she listened, she followed up, and so she will definitely be missed. So, thanks for that. So, just Steve, if when you get back to screen sharing, not now, but if you could pull up the goal one, the second slide for the 4th, 5, and 6 ones, the detail on that, that would be appreciated if that works out. I did want to ask one thing and comment one other really quick. Mayor Garcetti had a sustainability plan and I think a related Green New Deal plan. Were those utilized as base documents as you started your efforts?
Yes. So this builds on those plans. So they were the base for that. So as an example, one of the goals will be energy efficiency, and I think it was like 15% by like 2025 or something like that, which I think has been met, and then they're now extending those goals. Don't quote me on that percentage, but we are sort of looking at those goals. We're seeing where they've been met and then extending some of those goals. We're looking at where goals have not been met, and then we need to report those out and figure out how to go forward on those, and tracking them as we're going along. So yes, we're looking at the goals and then we're building on that. And in fact, if you go to the mayor's website, those goals are still on the website.
Okay, good, because a lot of us spent a lot of time during his tenure. So and then my other just a quick comment. About 2 weeks ago, I happened to be in Simi Valley in Ventura County, and I noticed on the freeway a procession of LA City garbage trucks heading west towards like Moore Park. I assume they might be going to the garbage dump. Anyway, the point is they were in a different county. That's concerned to me because the valley's been the dumping ground for the city in recent decades, and before that it was Griffith Park and other areas. And but also I know that the revenue that's generated from dumping, which I don't think there should be any dumping. That should be our goal. I know that's the goal for everyone in this meeting, but we get revenue when it's put into Sunshine Canyon facility. I doubt we're getting any revenue if it's going out to Ventura County, and not only that, just the the exhaust for further distances, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I just wondered if you happen to be aware, or is that being addressed in this plan in terms of, I know you mentioned in briefly the solid waste challenges, but and maybe we have to stay tuned for that. But anyway, that was just something that was really raised my eyebrows and was a red flag for me because I had no idea the city was taking our garbage, outside the county.
Yeah, unfortunately, this out of all the areas, circular economy and how the city does is I need to get back to you on where the current, zones are for where they haul their waste on that. But, some of the things that the city has implemented is a plastic reductions program. And the big one is organic waste, which, not only fills our landfill, but then of course produces methane on that. So the city is really focused on trying to mitigate some of those aspects for it. So it's really it's a whole cycle. So it works from the upfront, how can we reduce packaging and from those when we purchase to how do we use it to how do we transport and reuse those materials. And so, yeah, it's very complex and, unfortunately on where all those sites are, I can't, I don't have that information in front of me.
All right. Oh, sorry. Are you done? Are you done, Glenn? Okay, Chris, I apologize. There's been a glitch and Charles is asking to go next because apparently he was next. Charles, you're up.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Steve, thank you so much for doing this for us. Thank you for coming and talking about this stuff and for working on this stuff. Every one of these issues is extremely important that you guys are trying to deal with, and every one of them deserves attention. And it's really important that the mayor and her staff bring attention to these things. So I'll start by saying that. And then I want to say, as not just a native plant advocate, but as the chair of Los Angeles Climate Reality Project, I want to emphasize that biodiversity is not just a side piece to the climate question and the climate work. It's actually the centerpiece of the climate struggle. We are and I want to underscore what Rosalind said, but also emphasize that we are in a biodiversity emergency. What's happening right now, and it's the loss of life on the planet and loss of the species on the planet that ultimately will be our undoing. All of these other things are logistical things that we definitely need to work on. Now, because of this, it's particularly frustrating that there's no discussion in any of the slides that you presented of native plants. There is discussion of nature-based solutions and there's discussion about tree planting projects. But quite frankly, if the UFMP does come out and it doesn't emphasize native plants, it's doing a huge disservice to biodiversity. We must have native trees and native plants. 3% of our street trees are native now, which is a consequence of a culture that has been using the same 25 trees that are used all over the world. The UN Convention on Biological Diversity has emphasized that we're going to lose half the species on Earth by the end of the century at the rate we're going. And our urban spaces, our urban forests are some of the most crucial and critical spaces going forward in terms of preserving biodiversity because we are causing wildfires in our open spaces more quickly than things can actually recover. Now, as a result, when we have discussion going through the mayor's office of things like the Shade LA program, which wants to plant a bunch of trees, to have canopy, to have environmental justice for cooling the cities, to have a wonderful benefit to help reduce the heat island effect, there has to be a discussion that we have 90 species of native trees. And those should be the only trees that we should be using for those planting projects. But even though the city and the county have both put out biodiversity guidelines saying, hey, you should plant native stuff, when you talk to urban forestry or the rec and parks people in the city, they're still primarily planting non-native trees, the same stuff they've been planting for a century. Every butterfly species has to have a native species, and most of the time those are trees as a host species. We are losing biodiversity because we're making terrible choices because we're siloing things out. If we're going to do trees and we're going to do plants and landscaping and bring in beauty and cooling and all that to the city, it is ridiculous that we don't then require that the default be native species for all of these trees we're going to plant and all of this landscaping we're going to do. I guarantee you that if you talk to urban forestry tomorrow or rec and parks tomorrow, they'll have a dozen reasons why they don't want to do this. I also guarantee you that none of that is supported by peer-reviewed science and all of it can be challenged. The mayor had graciously come to a pilot project that we did, this organization and 3 or 4 other organizations that are represented in the room, in Palms last April, where we planted 24 native species, including species that have never been used as street trees in Los Angeles. They're all thriving except for one of them. I mean, and it was a pilot project, so we know that one wasn't a good fit. My point is, we have plenty of native trees, and we have butterflies on that street now that we didn't see before, and we have many great opportunities to move forward with this as an easy way to do the things we were already going to do, not spend a penny more than we were going to spend, and crucially support biodiversity in the ways that help the city and bring native songbirds and native butterflies back into the city in a very, very wonderful way for the people that live in the city. And I hope very, very firmly that the mayor will hear us on this and incorporate native planting on all city projects that are not for human food or for a recreational field or something along those lines, because there's just no reason not to.
Great. Thanks, Charles. Really appreciate those comments. And, there is, a lot of movement and a lot of advocacy around native plants. And we are working on projects as well. In fact, our street services now are planning medians with local plants. Of course, can it be, is it
Just a
enough?
few,
No, of course
Steve,
not.
just a few. And they've got a lot of
So,
reasons why they don't want to do
and
it.
and we're doing the best that we can with the resources that we have on that front. But we are, again, we are leaning into this topic. We want to support this. And yeah, I think you're right.
Well, I appreciate that and thank you. And I will take issue. They're not doing the best they can do on this because they're resisting it. But I understand that leadership from the mayor's office is a crucial part of making a change. So
Great.
I hope that we can move forward on that. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Charles.
Okay, I'm going to chime in again. Can you speak to, because I think a lot of what your office is doing, if I understand correctly, Steve, is you're convening the departments. So
Right.
there's I mean, maybe you can speak to that a little bit. Like you're bringing departments, you have these working groups. And I know that Garcetti started with the chief sustainability officer of each department. You're probably building on that. So I don't know what that relationship is. Are you working to cajole departments or like what is that dynamic? Maybe you can shed some light on the influence that you are using or trying to use with departments. And also one of my, I don't, well, maybe this is a time to mention, I know that there's no money right now. And I'm sure that that is um, a challenge with all of the work that you're doing.
Yes. So I think for the first one, yes, that is definitely a challenge. On the climate cabinet, that is the climate cabinet that I was referencing to.
Okay.
And it is made up of the top 15 departments, that again, mostly that have influence and touch on climate issues. Those are land holding. Most of them are land holdings, and of course, proprietary departments, public works, and et cetera. As I mentioned before, they meet regularly. Again, they're meeting with the mayor this week. In addition to that, there are working groups. There are working groups on topics. So we do have a nature-based solutions working group. We have a buildings working group. We have a water working group. There's a heat working group. And these working groups then work collaboratively on those departments. Right now, again, we're working with those departments to understand where they're at on these Garcetti goals that have been setting up, looking at creating new goals that we need to update just from having a plan that's 6 years old, and trying to move forward and really create this together. And as you mentioned, yes, there is a budget crisis, and there has been on top of that a lot of rollbacks of federal funding that we're anticipating to fund that. But that doesn't mean that we can't give up or still try to push ahead. What we're doing is finding ways in which we can still continue this work. We're being both creative and we're both being stubborn on our federal funding. And we are working together on trying to push that as much as we can with the limited resources that we have on these topics.
Okay, thank you. All right, Chris, apologies. The floor is yours.
No worries. Hi, Steve. I'm Chris Ree. I'm a resident of Eagle Rock, a co-chair of Urban Environmentalists. And I wanted to say that one thing that I haven't heard so far is about the role of our city as a city in its urban form and the connection between transportation and land use. I think it's kind of buried in goal one somewhere, but just want to underscore that land use is the most powerful tool that local governments have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We worked on a paper, including Charles in his capacity with LA Climate Reality Project, a little more than a year ago that laid out the case for infill housing as a climate change solution. And we have a policy prescription that includes looking at eliminating parking minimums, promoting transit and oriented development. And some other details which I can follow up later, but just want to kind of elevate that as one storyline that I think is really important for the long-term sustainability of Los Angeles. And then my question was actually a little bit more about the big picture. So you mentioned that there have been these previous plans and they were difficult to track, and you're doing that work now. So I'm wondering, like, is there a structural change or solution to make sure that in 5 years' time we know where we are and that departments are following through and or accountable, so that we're not in the same position 5 years from now?
Yeah, no, those are good. Two great questions. So, to your point, yes, I think land use is very, very important, and we're working with our planning departments right now. I think every time they do something, I think we cannot, you know, underscore the importance of it. Just recently well, this upcoming year, we'll have a new scoring system for multifamily, which will allow for more types of trees and more types of greenery in front of those buildings to be inserted, which is an important one. And that will radically change so much, right? It will change the heat. It will change how we are walking in the streets. It will change everything that we do. Building reuse, the planning department just redid that for the city of Los Angeles. That will help restore our buildings, which will help reduce our embodied carbon. I think the hardest thing, and Chris, you probably know, as you do so many of these plans, is how do you separate out and how do you, tap into these co-benefits of all these things. And some of it becomes like an academic and almost game of how to do it. And you have to unfortunately create some of these false boundaries to really focus on it, because obviously if you do focus on VMT, you're not talking that impacts obviously infill, public transportation, how are we building our homes and everything and that too. So, it is a balancing act. I would say it's more of an art. Hopefully we'll be able to do this justly, on that front. And I'm sorry, I already forgot your second question. Was that on?
Um, Tracking progress and
Tracking progress. Yes. So again, if you go to the mayor's page, they're all the Green New Deals statistical tracking that we're done. So we're looking at those. So we're really, again, trying to continue from that tracking that we have and trying to figure out what makes sense. Again, I want to say we're revising goals, not because we're like, oh, no, that was not good. But I think at the time, this was before implementing some of these plans and some of these goals. And I think, they were done sort of in foresight. So if there are changes, it's really because we're smack down or in the middle of implementation. And when you're in the middle of things, you realize, oh, this is hard to measure. So, some of that stuff is being adjusted because we're implementing it, because we're kind of realize that we need to rethink some of that stuff. I think this process is going to continue to go on. In 5 years, I'm pretty sure there'll be a similar look at the goals you are, adjust where you need to be, and then take it on from there.
All right, thank you. Fred.
Hi, I'm Fred Kuhns with the Mar Vista Transportation Infrastructure and Sustainability Committee. Steve, thank you very much for the presentation and listening to our comments. My question has to do with the relationship between the LA plan and surrounding cities and the county. The county has a 2045 cap plan for unincorporated areas. Santa Monica has a climate action and adaptation plan. Pasadena has a climate action plan. Is there anybody or group of people who are trying to synchronize those and look at how they fit together? Because obviously emissions don't automatically stop when they get to the LA Santa Monica border or wherever. So I'm just wondering if there's attempts to coordinate there.
Yeah, it's always the problem when you live in, this Southern California, just the fragmented nature of all these cities, that we live in. We do work closely with the county. We work with the chief sustainability officer, Rita Kampalath over there. And try to work in tandem as much as we can with the other cities through networking and through the other aspect of it. I think one of the things that we're really watching and trying to collaborate on is, for example, building decarbonization, would be something that's going to be, we're closely working and closely monitoring each of these different cities. West Hollywood just came out with their plan. Santa Monica is soon to come out with our plan. The county and LA, we're probably going to be aligned. And, we want to be, one of the things that we're hearing from developers on this plan is, we want to be synced up because it is, to your point, Fred, it's, you don't want a separate, regulation in Santa Monica, a separate regulation in West Hollywood, separate, you're going to drive developers, those who are trying to do crazy. So we are syncing that way. And the lead, of course, is we look to the county for that. So we work with the chief sustainability officer there, and they have regular convenings with all of us.
I'm going to use this opportunity to ask one of the questions that I had, which I was actually thinking Chris might ask, because he was really instrumental in getting it off the ground. Is the city, I think, working on or in the process of developing its own climate action and adaptation plan? So my question is, how does this climate implementation plan fit with the city's cap?
Yes. So as you just to give a quick background, I think about a year and a half ago, Katie Yaroslavsky introduced a motion saying that we should do a climate adaptation plan, which were run by council. So traditionally, the city's plans have always been an executive plan, right? They've been coming out of the mayor's office from Villagrosa to Garcetti to now the Basses. What this will do is that it will solidify into the city process. And we're working closely, has just begun on that. In fact, they hired Bureau Happold, and it's led through the chief administrative officer, which is another office in the city of Los Angeles, who's leading that team. And we're working closely. I think the difference that you could say is, this is going to be set the tone of what we need to do. And really, the cap is going to really look at how to get there, really dig into the GHG, really look at where we're going to be. It is the goal of the CAP by council motion to analyze a 2045 zero carbon goal. So it's really going to be looking at that. It's going to be taking the plan that we're doing, looking at the goals that we're setting, and then ask those questions of how to get there, what work needs to be done, and really really going into that. So you can kind of think this, this plan sets the tone, sets the expectations, and then the cap is going to really look at the GHG. What are these programs that are and these goals that we're setting? Will it make us to 2045? And what are we going to have to do that?
Okay, that's really helpful for me, at least. Thank you very much. Joanne.
Okay, I'm Joanne D'Antonio, and I was elected to the Greater Valley Glen Neighborhood Council Board 11 years ago after I was very upset about trees getting butchered in my neighborhood by urban forestry and also by subcontractors. From there, I joined the NCSA and I founded the Trees Committee, which I still chair since 2016. And I represented the NCSA Trees Committee on a working group for the Urban Forestry Management Plan. And I also was attending the Community Forest Advisory Committee since 2017, and now I'm chair of that commission. So I worked my way up. And I've made some progress with trees, but not certainly not enough. I'd like it to go back to the way it was under Reardon, except for the biodiversity element, which wasn't addressed back then. Under Garcetti, there were members of the public, members of CFAC in the cabinets, not just department heads. So I point that out to you because what happens with the department heads is things get very insular. They get inbred and new ideas don't really germinate early on. The Urban Forestry Management Plan, we were in that working group in 2018. This is 2026. We still don't have the Urban Forestry Management Plan. Usually these are done by an expert. This one is not. This one's being done in-house because the funds ran out. So the city forest officer said, well, we have to do our best. And she just decided to learn to do it. So there's very limited outside expertise. She does communicate. She has had meetings with the public, maybe too many meetings because we think that she needs more scientific expertise. I mean, she doesn't come from that. So with that idea, CFAC has made a proposal to the Charter Reform Commission to get an urban ecologist with a biology background, a biologist, to oversee the 8 different entities that plant our street trees. 8 different independent entities that are partners, but they don't have a scientific approach that is uniform over all of them. We tried to make this position some years back. CFAC tried, and we were told that that position had not been described and so could not be hired. So now we figure, well, with charter reform, maybe we can get this position described. So 2 CFAC members, myself and another one, presented at charter reform. And we happened to present on the day that Keith Mose, head of street services, was also presenting. And after our presentation, Keith Mose came up to us and said, I totally agree with what you said, and I think we should do it. So I have the support of a major city department that oversees urban forestry. The people in urban forestry picking trees have no knowledge of what species they should be planting. Yes, we can tell them to plant native and that sort of thing, but they don't have an overall ecological plan for what is best, in our planting projects. So at this point, I think that I want to just point out that we sent this organization, not CFAC, but the Neighbor Council Sustainability Alliance, took it upon itself a year and a half ago to distribute postcards to send to the mayor to anyone who had any concerns about what was happening with trees in the city. And 1,000 postcards were sent to the mayor. We have never heard back from the mayor. She never determined that this was from the Neighbor Council Sustainability Alliance, and why did we send all these postcards? So I just want to point out that we have a widespread network that is very concerned about trees, and we want to work with you, but we also want this to have a science element that's stronger than the city forest office has right now. It needs a person overseeing all the tree planting of the city. And I'm happy to share that proposal with you if you're interested.
Please, I would love to see that. Thanks, Joanne. Appreciate your support and your passion in this topic and the work that you're doing working with CFAC. I will take this back to the to Rachel Malrich, and we can talk more about the urban forestry management plan and some of your recommendations. And for those postcards, we have them, and we appreciate all your support. And again, one of the things that I've mentioned was just how important I kind of labor the broader neighbor, NBS, but nature-based solutions. But there's so much of this work and so much of how to better incorporate nature into our ecosystem is really top of mind for so many here in Los Angeles. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mimi.
Yes, hello. Hi, my name's Mimi Holt. I'm on the PICO MC. Until recently, I was co-chair of the Transportation, Mobility, and Sustainability Committee. I didn't, in your presentation, I didn't hear anything really about people-powered transportation. A bunch of us worked really hard to get Measure HLA passed, and we aren't seeing, it just seems like the city's dragging its feet. LA has the perfect climate for riding bikes, for being outdoors, skateboards, scooters, roller skates, perfect climate, perfect terrain. And yet it just looks like nothing's happening. And in fact, it turns out that, getting around on your own feet or on a bike or a scooter, it's incredibly scary. They have no idea how to behave around people who aren't in cars. The whole red turn on a red light thing is a disaster. But I think I I get a sense that more and more people want to be outside. They want to be able to go outside and get exercise. 1 in 10 adults in LA County is diabetic, and one of the risk factors for that is not enough exercise. Lack of too much noise is a risk factor for Alzheimer's and dementia. Not to mention air quality and preventing climate change. Like there's so many benefits to alternative transportation, and I just don't see the city, despite all our pushing and prodding, I don't see the city really, it just doesn't seem as forward as the city could be. LA could be such a great biking city, and it never shows up. It's like not even a top 100.
Thanks, Mary.
And that's my comment.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you those comments, and I think this kind of goes also to some of the stuff we're talking when Chris talked about his benefits of how zoning and how we can improve the city as we go through that. We do also, we're working with our Department of Transportation, who is the lead on this. They're very conscious of this, and they're working on their updated mobilization plan to talk about this stuff. And I think also too, I think one of the benefits of the Olympics is that we will have more bike lanes as well as more ways to get around in the cities, and that would be one of the legacies that we're looking on that. So thank you so much, Mimi.
Sorry, I got distracted. Is there do we know why we're really not moving on Measure HLA? Because I agree with everything Mimi said.
I don't know the details of that, so unfortunately, I think we would have to consult DOT on that question.
Okay, thank you. Susan.
Hi, my name is Susan Winsberg. I'm the president of Franklin Corridor Communities, although I'm here as an individual tonight.
Where is that? I've never heard of that.
Oh, it's a small group of us right here in the Franklin Corridor along Franklin in Hollywood.
Oh, I see. Got it. Yes, thank you.
We're representing more public say in development projects, basically. That's what we're about. I was surprised that this agenda did not include any talk about Zone 0, which is going to completely devastate our hillside communities. And now they've extended the high fire severity zone. So below Franklin, all the way down to Sunset is going to be included. And that's going to be thousands thousands of old growth trees removed based on very faulty science. And basically just a sellout to the insurance companies. And I find that a lot of people don't even know about it, and they are going to be directly affected. It's statewide. And so when you talk about nature and biodiversity, forget about it. This is going to be really bad. In case you don't know what it is, we basically have to tear out everything within 5 feet of our buildings. And a lot of gardens and trees are planted within 5 feet. I live in a classic Hollywood garden apartment that is incredibly beautiful and rare, all the more rare nowadays. And we're surrounded by beautiful gardens and 40-year-old birds of paradise. It will be in basically a concrete trough if this goes through. So this is something we all need to fight. It's not true. It's not right. I attended a very interesting neighborhood council meeting about it. It was actually the HHWNC. What does that stand for again?
Hollywood Hills West.
Hollywood Hills West. And there was a very interesting, informative guy named Lefty Lefkowitz, and he knew exactly what he was talking about with this. And a lot of people chimed in. It's just, it's going to hit people, and it's also going to hit them in their pocketbooks, because it costs a lot of money to remove trees and everything. So I feel like this is supposed to be implemented now in 2026. Since I've lived in this building for 34 years, and in the time I've been here, within a quarter block radius of my apartment, I'm at the corner of Franklin and Grace. I've witnessed over 40 mature trees be removed within a quarter block radius of my building. And that's before zone 0, okay? So we are losing trees, and I know they're not always native trees, and that's not good and everything, but we still need shade. We still need, the fresh air, the nature. I have birds and squirrels and all this nature around me. I won't anymore if zone 0 goes through, because the insurance companies will make it so that the landlords can't be insured if they don't get in line. So I just wanted to raise a flag about that and make sure everyone's aware of zone 0. And I don't know what can be done, but we got to do something about it. And it's not even correct anyway. It's false science.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, this is something we're following very closely. So this will be a state mandate. It will be controlled by the State Forestry and Fire Protection Board. They're slated to make some kind of decision in the spring. We'll see how that goes. But UCLA is organizing a lot of information on these topics. We've been talking to a lot of experts on this. There are concerns. City Council has put out a report, I think is very sort of telling, on the zone 0 that the CFAC did. So I recommend, looking at that and looking at some of the information, and, we'll continue to be persistent. I recommend the advocacy and working with UCLA and their support groups, as well as pressuring the state boards on your opinions on these topics.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, we're at the point in the meeting where I'm getting anxious about time. So I would like everybody to keep that in mind. We've got a few more people who have, okay, all of a sudden we've got a lot more people who want to make comments, which tends to happen. And I still have a few things I need to say. So just keep that in mind, you guys, because we'd like to be wrapping up around 8 before we go to our committee reports. We can go a little longer, but keep that in mind. All right, Martha.
Thank you very much. My name is Martha Davis, and I'm a former resident of the West Side when I was the executive director of the Mono Lake Committee. And that's where I've been passionate for the rest of my life of trying to figure out ways to develop local water supplies and ways of sharing water so that we can protect the resources over in the Eastern Sierra as well. And I really appreciate tonight's conversation, particularly Steve, with your focus on how you're looking at the metrics, because I think that was a really important part of the original plan and how you're trying to build on it. And then also the nature-based solutions, biodiversity, native plants. I think it's just such an important part of how we're going to cope with climate change and preserve the planet. My question for you is whether or not there is a discussion of extending the biodiversity goals to lands that LADWP owns in the Eastern Sierra. The city has such an outsized impact on that Eastern Sierra community as a result of its water gathering operations. LADWP does have a biodiversity policy, which I think is really important, but also the idea the Eastern Sierra community is very in on nature-based solutions, finding ways of sharing water with the city of Los Angeles while increasing the resilience. And just from a global messaging, the Eastern Sierra actually has major populations, particularly of birds, that are important to global diversity. At Mono Lake, the phalaropes is a great example in the relationship as they fly 6,000 miles nonstop down the Altiplano of Argentina. That relationship between those two places is the only one on the planet. So hopefully there'll be an opportunity. I'd love to hear if that's part of your thinking on this. And then also just the timing on the water goals for the city of Los Angeles and how we're developing our local water supplies, which is so important. LADWP does have its urban water management plan that it's supposed to put forward. I see you nodding. So maybe you have an idea of how your setting of the plan and the metrics for that will then influence the urban water management plan that DWP will be putting forward.
Yeah. So yeah, two things. So I'll start with the plan, and we are holding steady on our on those goals of the Green New Deal. So with the urban and water management plan, we'll take those into effect. Some of the goal of 100% local water by 2035 is probably a little bit very ambitious, but we're still keeping the 70% local water goals, as well as looking at if you're probably familiar with our Tillman plant that's currently under construction, which is so exciting. As far as I think there's a lot of great work that the department has been doing in restitution in the Owens Valley, working on rehabbing a lot of that environment. And an interesting project that they're continuing working on is even supporting the Inyo National Forest and helping them create healthy forests, because obviously that's a water table for the city. So they are working with the partners in the Forest Service over there to help, everything from recreation to making sure that, people recreate responsibly to ensuring that the forest remains healthy and vibrant for everyone. So there's lots of stuff out there. We could talk days about, of course, the Eastern Sierras, but thank you, Martha. Appreciate it.
All right, Pete. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Lisa. Good evening. Hi, everybody. Steve, thank you so much.
Wait, you have to introduce yourself. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yep. I'm Pete Marsh. I'm a clean energy advisor and investor. I work with USG Green Building Council California, American Institute of Architects in the LA area, Climate Reality Project, and other groups on driving down demand for gas in buildings by replacing methane appliances with electric ones affordably and equity, primarily as they approach end of life. And I put in the chat in my intro, hashtag electrify everything nerd. I just want to encourage bold targets and actions in the climate action plan for a balance of incentives and, where necessary, mandates that are aimed at ensuring that when every gas appliance in the city reaches its end of life, it is replaced with electric. Buildings are one of the most challenging aspects of the entire climate solutions puzzle because of the embodied inertia we have roughly nationwide 130 million dwelling units, 70 million gas furnaces, and 60 million gas water heaters, and even higher proportions in California. So replacing those machines as they reach end of life is a natural and the most affordable way to do it. And cities have pretty much unique authority across our range of government entities in the nation because of the land use elements of our general plans. So I'll just offer one of the groups that I work with, two of them, U.S. Green Building Council and American Institute of Architects, would be happy to help if you, and I apologize, I haven't read the detail of the plan yet, but if you have any questions about that, we'd be happy to help with the range of policies to help get there, from reach codes to building performance standards, benchmarking, etc. And then one related piece that all conceives primarily of addressing these one appliance at a time and one building at a time. But the wildfire rebuild offers an opportunity to expand that to neighborhood scale and community scale. We should take every opportunity not to even allow SoCalGas to recapitalize their distribution pipelines, and we should instead build those neighborhoods back all electric, which is healthier and better performance anyway. And there's one little known reason to emphasize this. Gas pipelines are budgeted on 50 to 60 year expected lifetimes. And they cost anywhere from $3 to $4 million per mile when the utility recapitalizes them with ratepayer funds. And yet we know we need to be using 90 to 100% less of the product that they distribute in just 20 years. So those gas pipelines are going to become stranded assets. And I'd just like to offer that out, and again, offer the help of U.S. Green Building Council, myself, in any way that is helpful.
That's great.
Amen.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Our Department of Building and Safety is the leading on this, and they actually are part of the REACH codes that USGBC California is leading. So we're working together on that, and yeah, we'll have there's a report out. I know we have we have a couple more questions, but there's some important report outs on a building performance standard that will come out this year by our building teams too, to look at how to do that. And I talked a little bit about some of the goals and where we're heading on the building performance standards.
Thanks so much.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Hey, thank you. It's Elizabeth Fenner. I live in West Adams. I'm the United Neighborhood Council, lifetime Angelino, essentially, and I've lived in Westchester and San Fernando Valley and Fairfax and LA and now Mid-City LA. I'm really glad to see. Thank you, Steve, for being here. Awesome. Good conversation. I'm really glad also to see fellow climate activists, Pete Marsh, who's hard to follow, Lorraine Lundquist, and Aura Vasquez, who I know to be federal climate activists. I, for at least 10 years, have gone to DC and argued for a carbon price. Wouldn't it have been nice if 10 years ago we got a carbon price? Let me get to this, though. A lot of ideas on all the issues that you've talked about. How to get there. I work in a city, an elementary school in South LA. We do not recycle. We do not recycle almost a thing unless I'm running around gathering paper or cans and bottles. We don't compost our food. And I can't put it on them. They're hard pressed in elementary school in South LA after COVID. So I think we need to bring back PSAs. Public service announcements. Remember, I grew up with public service announcements, and I remember, watching them. And we have a lot of different platforms that we could produce those, and they could be fun, they could be young, they could they get information into people's households, into people's lives in a fun, interesting way that brings buy-in, because we need buy-in is what we need. I'm also going to say, I think we should put tax holidays on sustainable products, sustainable events, sustainable stores like Sustain LA or the refill stations. I think we need to make thrift stores tax-free. And that's all I'm going to give you right now. But thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I think those are great suggestions. And yeah, I hear you. This is, trying to do organics, and it's so hard to do and ask people to do it. But I think it's going to a lot of creative ideas. PSAs I think are great, and I think outreaching is so important on this. So I appreciate doing that. So we'll share these ideas.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy.
Hi, so I'm Kathy Schreiner. I'm president of the Van Nuys Neighborhood Council. I'm on the Trees Committee. I'm an alternate on CFAC. And I also want to talk to you as somebody who has been on the Community Leadership Council for the East San Fernando Light Rail Transit System. So this is to build on something that Charles said and that Joanne said. We have the situation, they're going to remove almost all of the trees along 6.7 miles of Van Nuys Boulevard in that project because of how they have to change the sidewalks. And we have been trying to advocate for native trees, but Metro is limited to what urban forestry will allow them to plant. And Charles came up with a long list of native trees, and Metro gave it to urban forestry, and urban forestry approved 3 more than the trees they already were approving, like maybe some 70 trees down to 3. So this problem about what people in the city are allowing to be built is going to have very short-term impact. I think we probably 2 more years before they will start to really replant a significant number of trees on Van Nuys Boulevard. But if we can't take any action within that window, then we're going to lose a huge opportunity. And I wanted to just say to you about the schools, because thanks for the comment. Scott Schmerlson, who's the president of LAUSD, comes to our neighborhood council meetings, and he was saying to us recently that he has noticed in the schools they don't have very many blue bins. And so students are not he said when there were more blue bins, the students themselves would put papers and things in them. But now if there's like just one on the campus or something, it's just not convenient. So maybe there's something LA Sanitation and an LAUSD could be doing together to promote more recycling.
Those are great. I really appreciate that comment, Kathy. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, Kathy. Jane, aka Lily, aka Lily Jane.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to hear all these really important ideas. Thank you, Lisa and Charles for hosting, and Steve for receiving all of our ideas and synthesizing. So the first point I want to make is
you have to introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. I'm Jane Zong. I'm a watershed planner. I'm a watershed geek. I write for LA Creek Freak. I'm in Highland Park. So if without a strong stance on fossil fuel use and production, all of the other issues that we are discussing that are so meaningful to us are really just like cosmetic, reactions. And so I feel like there really has to be a strong stance on fossil fuel use. If we're not making, and transportation as a major, generator of fossil fuel use, if we're not making alternative and public and active transportation more attractive than driving, that's not good. And another point I want to make is there have been a lot of us that have brought up the word biodiversity, and that shows how important this is. Like people, this is a really meaningful value. And I agree that it's not enough for biodiversity to be another objective or metric, in a long list of metrics. It really has to be foregrounded as a focus of the whole plan. And tying this in to what Chris said about land use. Land use is such a central driver, of climate change. And land use is also land use and biodiversity. When you bring those things together, that's what integrates all of these other issues that we're talking about. If we can open up land use, take back land and use it for the public benefit, curb development and kind of repossess land, on the floodplains and wherever we can bring more parks in. We can increase our biodiversity, park access. We're cleaning air. We cannot truly meaningfully have local water supply or sustainable water usage if we don't have local water supply. And in order to get local water supply to catch our local rain, we really have to free up more local land. and protect our open space. And native plants are a huge tool in terms of maximizing the infiltration and biodiversity and cooling benefits of our land. So land use and biodiversity go together, and they are key and central in solving our water conservation issues. If we increase our local water supply, not only do we get all these local benefits, quality of life benefits, but we're also we also have more potential to bring back the biodiversity benefits to our extended LA watershed, which Martha brought up, the Eastern Sierras. So, like so land use and biodiversity, and we really have to look at our enlarged footprint, our watershed and resource footprint. And to what Elizabeth Fenner said about public service announcements, this is all about culture change. We have to change our culture. And public service announcements, PR, we need better messaging, and that's really key. And many of these issues like land use, nobody wants to get involved with, right? It's too politically controversial. And that's why we need to change culture and work on PR, in a really focused way. So I think those are my comments. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jane. I appreciate those. Those are important and something to watch out for. So, LADWP is expanding some of their water capture projects in the valley to help build on those aspects. And of course, Measure W, which you probably well know of, is so important in these.
I'm sorry. A key thing I forgot to mention too is natural hazards. Land use and biodiversity absolutely affect our policy about land use and biodiversity are really tied in with how we manage natural hazards. So fire and flood, like flood attenuation, we need open land for that. And I'll just throw out that I wrote an article on LA Creek Freak called Engineering the Drying of the LA Basin, and that to some extent describes some of the ways in which our policy has led to desiccation of our land, increasing our vulnerability to fire. Thanks.
Thanks, Jane.
All right, Lorraine.
Thank you so much for this presentation, Steve. I just wanted to ask about...
Lorraine, I'm sorry. I think we might all know you, but you do need to introduce yourself.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Lorraine Lundquist, former board member here at NCSA, and I'm in Northridge. And I just wanted to ask, the Controller's Office did an audit of the Green New Deal plan a couple of years ago that was pretty insightful and showed, some of the gaps, I think, in the pursuit of those goals. I was just wondering to what extent you have utilized that report or are working with the Controller's Office and drawing on the insights that they provided in creating this plan.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a good point. Yeah, they put out, it must have been almost 2.5 years ago, but we have sat down with them. Of course, we have it, we read it. We looked at it, and we're definitely, they've talked a lot about accountability and the importance of that in that report. So we have been working with them on that aspect. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I actually did not know that, so you've really piqued my curiosity. Carl.
Oh, I'll put a link in the chat.
Oh, thank you. That'd be fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Carl, the floor is yours.
Well, I clearly I'm showing them I have lots of opinions and worked hard to understand how to design. I'm an architect.
Okay.
And I just say real quickly, and I made a number of comments about this development in Davis, which is now 50 years old, which many people in the know think it's the greenest thing development. But the lessons from passive solar from the 70s, what it's really about is keeping it really simple. In village homes, it starts with how does the sun and the water move across the land? And we don't do that enough. And when we do that, which is the basis of life on the planet, a lot of really great solutions fall out of nature. And that's happy to share more information about that, but that's kind of it. And we don't do simple very well. We're always looking for the new technologies. So that's been the basis of my work in reading and research. And Village Homes demonstrates the ecological benefits, the environmental benefits. Just an example is that people live there without air conditioning in the summer. And I had the opportunity to visit a gentleman who lives there in August, and his home was 76 degrees when it was 101 degrees outside. So they can do it in Davis. We can do it in Los Angeles and use a lot less energy. So anyway, you have my information and happy to share.
Yeah, no, thanks, Carl. I'm a big fan of passive house designs and the sort of
I have to say passive house. This is
That's just
passive
different.
solar.
Okay.
Passive
It's passive
solar.
solar. Okay.
Passive solar is from the 70s.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah,
And
I'd love to
and
learn
I
more.
and it's and I have and to really key it's passive solar produces better results without increasing construction costs. So for the environmental equity issue, so passives, in short, passive house good for Germany where it's really freaking cold, not good for, like we don't build igloos here in California, and we shouldn't build. We need to ask more questions before we jump into passive house. But anyway, I'm happy to.
Great. No, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, I appreciate it.
interesting.
I would like to follow up. Thanks.
Thank you. You've piqued my curiosity, and I saw your email, so I will follow
Yeah.
up.
It's just, I mean, one last thing I can, the lesson from Village Homes is, I think we should have a criteria that a development should reduce the microclimate by 10 degrees,
Yeah.
as that should be a standard.
Mhm.
And if you don't do that, then you're not green. Everything else is greenwashing. That's my, so
Thank
there
you.
you go.
Aura.
Thank you, Lisa. Hi, everyone. I'm Aura Vasquez. I'm a longtime, community organizer and advocate here. I belong to the Building Electrification Coalition. I lead also the electrification work for the Sierra Club Angeles chapter and the chair there. And I belong to a million other groups that you probably see me here and there. I'm also a former commissioner for Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, where I met Steve. Thank you so much for being gracious and taking all these questions that are taking us in so many different directions, which leads me to the comment that I wanted to make for you, Steve, because a lot of these comments, they're not under your jurisdiction or your power to control. And it sounds to me like it's absolutely necessary for this group to meet with the decision makers. So, for example, sanitation, street lighting, believe it, the even the building code, and of course, Mayor Bass. I have know how hard she's been working to solve our homelessness crisis. I see all of the work that she's done to rebuild Palisades and help, other places that also were affected. But she needs to be here. There is a huge void, in my opinion, right now from leadership at that level. We came from Mayor Garcetti, which for better or for worse, he was quite involved in this topic. It was very dear to his heart, and so much more we could be doing if she was here. I also think that is empirical and super necessary more than ever to have bigger and stronger inter service, collaboration, because the city cannot do it alone. You need so many of the different areas, and it will be so great that people can direct their questions and their comments to the right, to the right place. And obviously not just you. So I commend you for being here and listening to all this stuff. But we need the people that can make the decisions here. I think it's time.
Great. No, thanks, Ara. And always thank you so much. And great to hear. And congratulations on all your work for the zero coal campaign. I think it's finally great to see finally.
Yes, Aura, thank you. I shared in the article
That
from the
is
LA Sentinel
right.
in
Man,
our newsletter. I thought that was because I thought it was so good at capturing all the community organizing work that led to that. Yeah.
Yeah, so just very quickly, for those who maybe don't know, 15 years ago, we started this campaign. Many of you were involved to get Los Angeles to stop their reliance on coal. And just last December, this happened. And I was somewhat heartbroken to see Mayor Bass. I mean, I was obviously very happy to see the announcement, but I was heartbroken not to see the people that made it happen
Yes.
standing with her. So I
Yeah.
felt compelled to write that article. Thank you, Lisa.
I felt so similar. That's why I shared the article because I felt like that piece of it. I wasn't around when that happened. I got involved in this work really right after you guys won
Mhm,
that. But
mhm.
I knew what that had taken to some extent, and I was like, there's a piece of the story that's not being shared here. So I
Yeah.
really appreciated that article.
Maybe we get to celebrate Steve in the future, with all of the people and all the incredible organizations and the rainbow coalition that we were able to build, which is so necessary right now for all of these issues that people have mentioned today. If we want to get them passed and get them moving, we need a really diverse coalition of folks. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah. No, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it. And I think that's important. I will definitely, make the request for the mayor to speak and these to you all and to the stakeholders, which is your voices are so important in this process. And I can't, understate how important this is and your feedback is. My one last question, Lisa, can I get a transcript of the chat by any chance?
Yes, we actually do save it and share it. So
Oh,
yes.
great. Okay. There we go.
I will do that. And we of course are running late. We always run late, but we are sticking to tradition. I have my two, I hope, quick questions are, how is SEMO integrated into the plan? And how can we, as neighborhood council folks and as stakeholders, folks who live in LA, be connected to the plan and implementing it?
Yeah, that's great. I think, well, first off, so SEMO is now under the Emergency Management Department, and they will be leading, they're be leading the heat portion of this. So they will be in charge of leading the heat impact report that they're calling it the HARP.
Oh,
That's
yes.
coming
We're
out.
involved with that. Yeah.
So, they're the instrumental part on that. As far as, engaging, I think that this will be great. And maybe, this will be kind of like a part two. Obviously, we'll be sharing iterations of this. We would love to think how we can better collaborate with you all on these topics as we move forward. So Lisa, I don't know how best to do that, but I don't know,
I
maybe
don't either.
yeah, but we can, but let's talk again and figure out how we can do that, moving forward. Because obviously we're going to roll out, and then we got to do the work. So we need to keep
Yeah.
that on. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for joining us. And I
Absolutely.
agree with Auda. This is a lot for you to take on, and I'm really impressed by the breadth and depth of your expertise. There's so much and so much to do. So, and I know we're a tough crowd, but you handled us. Handle is maybe not the right word, but let's use it. You handled us very well.
Oh,
So thank
yeah.
you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Everyone have a great night. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
All right, moving on to committee reports. We'll try to do them fast. And I'm having a little weird computer glitch. So I think, Charles, if you can share the slides, that would be very
Oh,
helpful.
now you want me to. You said earlier you didn't.
No, I always said I wanted you to.
Okay. All right. Let's get it
I said I
going.
didn't want to do the intro slides, but I wanted to do the committee slides.
Okay. 1 second.
But maybe I will try to go off the top of my head with advocacy in order to save time. So we're working with a bunch of folks on biodiversity And I will, oops, that one is supposed to be hidden. Oh yeah, if you hit slideshow, you hit slideshow in the top right. Yeah, I guess it'll be hidden. Nope. Oh gosh, that's supposed to be hidden. Why is that showing? Anyway, go to the next slide. There we go. We're working with a bunch of folks on native plants, and to a little bit Auda's point, and actually would have been nice if Steve could hear this. We actually trained, I wasn't a trainer, I shouldn't say we trained, but we were part of a group that trained a bunch of the mayor's staff on biodiversity. Our understanding is the mayor is quite aware that the environmental community is a bit underwhelmed by her lack of focus compared to Mayor Garcetti. And so she's really receptive to getting more, getting more involved. And so a lot of the mayor's staff, the community engagement folks, like a lot of the field reps and stuff, were trained on these issues just Friday. So that's an exciting advancement. I'm not going to talk about all of these things. The other thing I wanted to mention, Sean, are you here? I don't think you're here, Sean, are you? Okay,
Hey
he's
there.
not
Yep,
here.
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm here.
okay,
Sorry,
Sean,
just couldn't get off mute.
oh, great. No, sorry. Please take a minute to talk about LA Climate Week and
Sure.
the idea and your idea for neighborhood councils, because a lot of folks are here.
That's great. Well, thanks so much. And I will give out the opportunity to speak to this as well. We're so excited. 2026 is the third year that we are getting into LA Climate Week. We have dates booked for April 8th to the 15th. And we're coming in bigger and better than ever, having done a lot of work over the last 10 months to think about how to make this, what we can really, what will be really helpful for the climate movement here in LA. And a big part of that is just serving as connective tissue for a lot of effort that's already happening, and also helping to bring climate conversations down deeper into neighborhoods, and really seeing what we can do to help get climate conversations happening between friends and family across the whole region. We do define our geography as being this whole region, so the county plus. We actually have quite a few folks out west, not quite as far as Santa Barbara, but getting out in that area and pretty far north. We have a great partnership growing with San Diego Climate Week, and going down south, and then even into the Inland Empire. So there's just a lot of really great momentum for this, and have started a lot of conversations with folks like you, with various city councils, um, and with neighborhood councils. And to that end of wanting to be seeing and advocating for and facilitating climate conversations as locally as we possibly can, we've been inviting neighborhood councils to endorse LA Climate Week as an annual observance, something that we can all get behind as an anchor point for us to really center 1 week of the year. And really, during the whole month of April, we'll have events happening. But 1 week during the year, similar to like Dine LA, we've got everybody paying attention to all the good work that we're doing on everything from energy and infrastructure to biodiversity to environmental justice and equity. So that's the invitation. We have a draft letter of support. We have a draft motion that we shared with Lisa and the advocacy committee, and hope to be available to your neighborhood councils and any other groups that you're working with, to see how we can get you involved. And Auda, I
Yeah.
would, if there's anything you want to add or that I missed, please do. Auda's a founding member of our steering
Yes.
committee.
Yes, so thank you, Sean. So an idea for all of you that might be thinking, why are we talking about LA Climate Week? You all just gave Steve a wonderful points. And the only way that those points are going to get to life is not by just telling Steve. It's by really bringing it together, talking to other people, making it happen. I mean, a great way, obviously, is here the neighborhood council system. But you can come to the LA Climate Week and host an event, maybe an information event with other friends, and also meet fellow people, like-minded people that might be interested in learning more. Like Carl, you mentioned some really interesting stuff. I have no idea. Like I'm looking forward to maybe see you, at the LA Climate Week, with some of this information, this your information sent with Elizabeth. Everybody that spoke had such a good pointers. Like I hope that you can come to LA Climate Week and share more about what you're doing, not just here.
All right, thank you. So I put a link to the draft letter in the chat. So for neighborhood councils, if you want to have your neighborhood council write a letter to your council folks, Sean would really appreciate that. And the last thing I'm going to talk about today is we were invited to join the Sepulveda Basin Wildlife Area Steering Committee. It's so funny that there's an organization whose name is maybe longer than ours, but there is, it turns out. Melanie Winter, I think most or all of you know, died, and the group thought that it would be nice if we could be there in her stead a little bit, I think. So I think Kathy Schreiner and Glenn Bailey will be our representatives on the group. They already attend those meetings. And I think that's really nice. So that's it for us. Let's see, is it transportation? No, it's energy next. AJ, are you here?
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay, great.
Yeah, mine's relatively simple. So the latest items that we've been working on, and it's ironic the LA 100 plan came up because we've been working on a letter, just been brainstorming in a couple of energy committee meetings, and all of you forgive me if I cough because I'm still recovering from a cold. Um, but we've been working on a letter towards focusing on achieving the LA 100 goals. The byproduct behind it is that we realize achieving it by 2035 would be a little more expensive, and realizing that if achieving it by 2045, we wanted to, but there's been some questions around there. There's been a little bit of conversation and questions of can we absolutely get there, based on the provisions around implementing scattergood. So there was even deeper conversation around that. So we're hoping to wrap that letter up at the next committee meeting. And then our other focus has been around the recent appeal around Ordinance 187714. For those of you not familiar with it, that's tied to the California Restaurant Association versus Berkeley, where it ruled in favor of the Restaurant Association for all new buildings to be electrified, and we're basically focusing around what is the city of LA, and especially with building and safety, going to do about that. So I know that some of our committee members had conversation with CD5 around that. So we are making traction and just figuring out what are going to be the next steps with the city of LA as far as how they go about their building. And then lastly, we're still working on looking for a new co-chair for this committee. So just as a reminder, we meet every third Wednesday at 7 p.m. and those are my updates.
Thank you, AJ. And I think transportation is next. Transportation and land use, yes, the name has changed, I think formally, although we don't have a charter yet.
Oh. So we had our meeting, so we obviously didn't meet up on December for our monthly, but we did meet on December 9th. We talked about the recent LA Metro vote from December 4th. We also discussed the tax exemption stemming from the wildfires last year. We also talked about the off-street parking requirement and possible action. Again, I want to reiterate that we finally have a new co-chair. His name is Chase Puskar. We're going to meet this coming Tuesday. It's going to be we now meet at the second Tuesday every month, and we're going to meet on the 13th of this coming Tuesday. And that's it.
All right, thank you. Trees.
Joanne, that's you.
I was muted. Yes, thank you. Joanne D'Antonio, Chair of the Trees Committee. And we're a very large committee, and we meet. So obviously not everyone attends, although it would be really interesting to have 180 people at one meeting.
You can't. Our Zoom only takes 100.
Okay, we haven't hit that goal yet, but we'll keep trying. We learned that the street trees that are being planted used to get 5 years of watering, which or watered until they were able to sustain themselves without watering. This is no longer the case with budget cuts. So I've secured a list of all the trees that are in the fourth and fifth year, saplings that were planted by urban forestry or one of the planting partners. And LA Sand, which has number of different grants to plant trees, only gets 2 or 3 years of watering with their grants. So we have more trees that need watering. We have this divided by neighborhood council areas, and I was inspired by Charles Miller's success in getting residents to water new trees in the pilot program. Lisa Hart and I were taking names of people who volunteered to water the baby trees on their block, and we had an overwhelming success. Over 30, no, 50, I think, people volunteered to do this. So given that, we thought we'd go to the neighborhood councils. I'd like to start this at the January 31st trees meeting. We meet bi-monthly, and we're going to have one this month. And at that meeting, we'd like to figure out a plan for how we can get to other neighborhood councils and give them lists of trees to be watered and figure out a management system. Charles has some skill at this, and I think it's doable. People seem to like it. Trees don't need a terrible amount of water. We've had a lot of groundwater recently, so it's not too bad, but these saplings can't always reach it. So we may need to do some watering, and we have time because this need probably won't be until when it gets hotter. So anyway, that's a new project, and I'm feeling some enthusiasm for it, and hope I have other people who also would like to join and help me figure out how to do this and recruit. So that's our goal this time.
All right, thank you very much. Announcements. I will make one quickly. Our next meeting will be a candidate forum for city attorney. I screwed up and sent the email. I had a wrong email address that I didn't catch until today. So I'm not sure if Heidi Feldstein Soto will be joining us, but we will have Marissa Roy and also Ida Ashuri, who some of you know because she's been with the Los Feliz Neighborhood Council for a long time. So it will be a really, really interesting conversation. If you folks have been following the city attorney stuff the last couple years, it's been a really interesting conversation. And the city attorney does influence sustainability related things. So we'll learn more about that and about the role. So please join us next month. That will be February 8th. And now the floor is open to anybody else who wants to make announcements. And it looks like Charles is up. And I'm assuming Glenn will have an announcement because he always does.
So two things really quickly. Just you very briefly saw the lawn to habitat thing. Just wanted to let you guys know that we're doing that again this year. We picked our finalist spots and we're about to formally to pick the recipient for that. It'll probably be the end of March when we do that. We'll give you dates when they are selected. But that's been a very successful program that we've done as a coalition with a number of other groups. And both the sites that we've done in the last couple of years just look fabulous. And we hope to have as many of you as possible to be out and part of that. I also want to take this opportunity to invite everybody to LA Climate Realities chapter meeting, which is going to be on January 25th, which is a Sunday evening at 7 p.m. It's a virtual meeting on Zoom. We're going to have Evan Schwartz, who's a very notable author on climate issues. If you want to talk to somebody who's out there as a reporter and as an author doing work, writing for Smithsonian, Business Week, Tech Review, all these different things about the implications of what we're doing on climate. And it should be a fascinating conversation. We'd love to have you there. Link in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn.
Thank you. A couple things really quick. First of all, with regards to the Public Basin Wildlife Area Steering Committee, it was formed in around 1990 as a result of funding that was provided from other levels of government to create the wildlife refuge in the Sepulveda Basin so that there was some citizen oversight. So it's been around quite a long time. And just to clarify, there was very robust discussion at the last meeting, and unfortunately, Melanie's group, the River Project, didn't really have a succession plan. So the discussion then came as far as another topic, which was representation of the two neighbored councils that include the entire Sepulveda Basin, and then Van Nuys, which includes a piece of it as well. So the discussion ended up in terms of neighbored council representation of the neighbored council sustainability alliance. So we didn't know if that would be something that the group was interested in, but it sounds like you were. And if you've applied to become a member, I know you've put forward our two names, but that's so. I just want everyone here to know that the seat on that advisory board is a seat that is specifically their efforts to get neighbored council representation from the perspective of folks who are interested in environmental, wildlife, environmental issue, background, right? To guarantee that there was a focus in that regard, as opposed to neighbored council in general, may or may not have that. Just a couple of other really quick things. So many of the things we talk about are driven by the city budget or not. And those of you who are neighbored councils have probably gotten the invitation for the Budget 101 session that's going to be held on January 29th at 6:30 p.m. virtually. The lead is Department of Neighbor Empowerment, but the neighbor council budget advocates are participating. So that's open to anyone who wants a little primer on city budget process and how it works. And it's about to launch with the departments, the mayor, and then the mayor's release of the next year proposed budget actually it's this year's proposed budget starting July 1 on April 20th. So just wanted to, and if you go to the empowerla.org calendar, you can find the info there or check with anyone who's on a neighborhood council. They'll have that invitation. Okay, I guess I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I'm remembering if you guys can also complete our evaluation, we would really appreciate that. And Andrea.
Yeah, I do have a question for AJ in terms of the delaying the date for 2035, because I do know that if we just proceed with the hydrogen boondoggle, that, all the turbines right now are back order because of all the data centers and everyone wants more gas just to power these things. But if we go with virtual power plants, I mean, virtual power plants can be set up in 6 months, I mean, or even faster. And not only we don't have more emissions, but we have more reliability. Now, having said that, I also want to point to the chat. There's a appeal right now that was filed to have the city council overturn the approval from DWP. So I don't know what the position is for NCSA or any of you all, because again, I think that DWP, especially the board, just rushed into this, and the final, it was not even final. The study that Enroll did is not considered final because it was not peer reviewed, and the fact is that because Trump took all the incentives away, that meant that all this infrastructure will have to be paid by us, the ratepayers. And now we're talking about $2 billion for this. So our rates will go up significantly if this project moves forward.
I think you need to join our energy committee, but my hope is that the letter is done maybe tomorrow, actually, not at the next meeting, because this has been dragging on far too long, frankly. So it might be too late for you to weigh on this. Well, actually, if you got on our email list, because I'm sure we'll run the final letter through our email list. So that would be a way to weigh in. But we've been talking about it for months. But we can't talk about it here because we're 8 minutes past our end time.
Okay.
But let me know if you want to join the email list. We'd be happy to have you.
Okay. Yeah. No. I'll join the next committee meeting.
Okay.
But I'm just concerned because I was also part of the other 100 study, and I mean, initially we wanted 2030, and now it's like 2035, and it might not even be that.
Right. We might not get it. And I think we're trying to say that our position is as long as we get to close, because I think what we're trying to say is, although we haven't gotten our wording down, is we're not saying we need to get to 2035 if the rates are gonna be insane. If we can get to, 98% by 2035 and have people's rates stay reasonable, then that's fine. I think that's what we're trying to say.
Okay.
And the hydrogen thing, we had a presentation on it last month. And I'm not sure how I frankly was having a personal crisis and was in the car for a lot of the meeting. I'm not sure if that changed people's minds very much because people are aware that the hydrogen issue is a factor. But I'm saying way too much about it after I said I wasn't going to say anything about it because it's 8:40 and you guys are supposed to go home. And Charles is like, that's right, Lisa. Okay, so you guys, thank you. Thank you guys. I think this was a good meeting and I hope that Steve heard all of our thoughts. Oh, and somebody, I think AJ must have put is that a different letter? That might be a different letter. Anyway, good night, you guys. To be continued. Hope to see you next month. And let's hope that 2026 is better than 2025. It's not looking like we're off to a great start, but we'll find out. Good night.
Bye. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Lisa, give me a call when you get a chance. So I'll call you, okay?
Yeah, you call me. How are you, Steve? It was so nice to see your face.
Well, it's good to see you too. There's an old joke about altercockers like me when somebody asks them, "Oh, it's too
Wait,
long
say
for..."
that again?
No, never mind. There's a joke about for people who are old guys like me, when somebody asks him that question. And a guy, a guy who's, I'm 91, okay? And right now, at this point
I
in
had
life,
no idea. Are you really?
yeah.
I
Well,
did
next
not
week.
know that. I'm
Next
shocked.
week. So at this point in life, we have aches, pains, and there's a guy like me who decides he's going to jump off the Empire State Building. He's had enough. So he jumps off, and at the 34th floor, somebody looks out the window and says, "How you doing?" He says, "So far, so good." So that's the magic word among guys who are in my position. So far,
I
so good.
imagine so.
So
I'm
that's the
impressed.
answer. But anyway, I really wanted to talk to you about somehow how we could get our temple involved in something meaningful and participating in this. Because we've got a pool of people, who are really willing to do something that, if they can find something that's really relevant for them and motivational for them. So I'd like to talk to you about that.
All right. Well, yes, definitely give me a call.
Give me a call.
All right. Good night, everybody.